frankly, I think tomboys and butch lesbians and andromask lesbians and androfemme lesbians, all the types there, pretty poggers, have to say. I'm a big fan. I like the look. Mullets are in. He's rocking it. And this is interesting to me because this is always the case with LGB without the T-types. Always with the terfs and the whatnot, where they're like, oh my god, why can't you just be a tomboy? Why do you have to be a trans man? Why can't you just be a femboy? Why do you have to be a trans woman? You know, it's like that step a little bit past outright bigotry for gender non-conforming people, masked with a pseudo-progressive like, oh, I'm okay with feminine men and masculine women, but as soon as you try to change they gender and charge they phone, then I have a problem with it. Turns out they don't like the gender non-conformity by default. That's what they have a problem with. So I was just bowing my head and saying a prayer for the good of society because the woke mob, I regret to inform you, was at it again, trying to cancel yet another person on the internet. This time, it seems to be Kristen Stewart. Now, I always thought her name was Kirsten Stewart, and I didn't even know she was the Twilight lady. That said, I did know Robert Pattinson of The Lighthouse fame with Willem Dafoe, I think that's what he's most popular for, was Edward in Twilight. That was brought to my attention because The Lighthouse is an incredible movie. It's a wonderful piece of art. You fancy me lobster, don't you, boy? Like, what else need I say? So for whatever reason, Kristen Stewart is getting canceled for being hot, I guess. It's weird. It's essentially the meme. It's like this one, where the NPC, they were mad at Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift, for those of you who didn't know, is a deep state plot drawn up by Joe Biden and his administration, because let's be honest, it's not Joe Biden. He's not quick enough to do any of that. It's his handlers. Through the funding of George Soros, I'm being told by these right-wingers, become a popular musician and then start dating the tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce. And when they started dating, the idea, I think, behind the plot was to make sure the Kansas City Chiefs get to the Super Bowl. And it ended up happening exactly as planned, it would seem. And I think they won. I don't actually know who won the Super Bowl because I don't care. But I'm pretty sure the Chiefs won against, I don't even know who the other team was. And that was the obsession for a while. It was all orchestrated to help Joe Biden win the 2024 presidential election because those things are somehow related. You'll have to consult with Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and his insane board of connections behind him to try to make those connections yourself, I guess. But yeah, so now it's Kristen Stewart. And I'm not a big Kristen Stewart fan, like I say. I did not realize that when I saw this popping up on my timeline, that she was the Twilight lady. Because I didn't watch Twilight. I don't know any other media that she's been in. But she was in a Rolling Stone. And it says, Kristen Stewart, uncensored, quote, I want to do the gayest thing you've ever seen in your life. After more than 2 decades in the spotlight, she knows who she is and what she wants. Now, of course, people being happy with who they are and loving people they love and expressing themselves in the way that they find the best for them or what makes them happy, all of these things are like anathema to the existence of the average conservative. They hate when people are happy because they aren't, and they think it's unfair that other people can be happy when they hate themselves and everyone around them. That's the crux of it, really. So they need to be seeing other people they don't like suffer in order to feel better about their station in life. Because they orient their entire lives around the goings-on of other people. Like, if other people they don't like are doing good, that means that to those people, they're doing bad, even though there's literally no connection there. And often it is the case that if the people they don't like are doing well, they're also doing well. When the people they don't like the queers, like the brown people, like the black people, they're doing worse, those people think that they're doing better now because of that, because at least they're not doing as badly as those people over there whom they find uncomfortable to be in the presence of for pathological reasons beyond the comprehension of the average human being. The big thing people are mad about is the cover here, which it should theoretically be fine to show on stream, but it's a little showing, wow. She's wearing this leather vest, and then for her leg wear, she's wearing a jockstrap. For those of you who don't know, this is often worn by athletes who are using a cup as armor for their gear if they happen to have a certain set of appendages down there. But she's a cis woman, to my knowledge. I did not know she was a lesbian. It turns out I think she is. But she's wearing that because the jockstrap, it keeps the cup in place, and that's the point of the garment. Coincidentally, it's also a bit homoerotic. Anyway, so she's doing that, and she has a hand in the jockstrap to mime that she may or may not have a wiener, you know? Try to keep it PC around here. And people are mad about this. So essentially, Love Lies Bleeding, apparently, is the movie that she's in, and I believe it's a romantic thriller, it says, and there's a lesbian couple, if not more of them, and Kristen Stewart plays one of the lesbians. Turns out Kristen Stewart might also be a lesbian or bi IRL, and she's just presenting a bit more like a tomboy, which I was led to believe that a lot of people who aren't even the biggest fans of trans people are at the very least, okay with. And they seem to have, a fear that the trans agenda is erasing the tomboys and femboys and making them think that they're actually the other gender. But we'll get into that. So we have one of those types, this Angie Jones character, who's a self-described terf, it would seem. So that, it stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist. It's a misnomer because they're not actually feminists. You cannot be a feminist and be trans exclusionary. The overlap of oppression there to continue the oppression of trans people will continue necessarily the oppression of all other people, including women, cis or otherwise. So, bit of an L. Quote, women had 10 to 20 years where we didn't have to be sexually objectified to get a sought-after magazine cover. Like, that is true. There is a big problem in the media industry overall. Movies, music, TV, fashion, etc., where in order to get any kind of prominence in that field, in those various industries as a woman or a feminine person, it did require you, unfortunately, to be very sexualized, usually for the viewing pleasure of men that are consuming whatever it is that's being put out. That's obviously going to be the product of a lot of patriarchal thinking and stuff like that, and a lot of these systemic problems involved with what feminists have been fighting to rectify for a long-ass time and are continuing to. That is true, and we have moved in a direction where that's becoming less of the case, which is good, but there are some problems that I can diagnose just from this, given the context of what we're looking at and the single first sentence, but we'll read the rest of it. She goes on to say, porn-inspired, hyper-sexualized, homophobic gender ideology, okay, brought sexual objectification back again. Homophobic gender ideology. Source, crackpipe.jpg. What the fuck are you talking about? So at this point, you can kind of tell that this person is an LGB without the T kind of person. They proclaim to be okay with gay people in their existence, so long as they're lesbian, bisexual, or gay, usually meaning gay men, but they don't like the trans people for whatever reason. Women rights campaigner in the corner? Yeah. So now, of course, given all that, we're going to police how somebody, a woman, a lesbian, is choosing to portray herself, because that's just the feminist thing to do. I don't know how it brought sexual objectification back again. It often seems like the case that the people who are sexualizing trans people are right-wingers and anti-trans people who see a trans person who is just, simply existing. They have transitioned either socially, medically, or both from one gender to another, and they immediately think of that process as a sexual one, not just like a sexual biological one. Your literal sex is being modified by hormones and whatnot, but like a sexual one in terms of an erotic one, which is not the case and is actually a projection of the way that they are sexualizing trans people. It's like, I can look at a trans person and with the knowledge that they were once, say, a cis man, and then they transitioned to a woman, or I can see a cis woman who then transitioned to a trans man, and be like, wow, that's a man or woman, depending on if it's a trans man or a trans woman. The furthest that's going to go is wow, that's a trans person, because I now know this information that they've usually given us themselves, that they're trans, and they're usually happy about that fact, and proud of the fact that they've, gone through this journey. I can see that, and it'd be completely, platonic, normal, because I'm a normal person. I see another person, another human being existing, living their life, and I don't immediately think about their sexual proclivities. You got me, I'm a normal person. I see a man and a man holding hands walking down the street, and then one of them pecks the other on the cheek, and I make the realization in my head, wow, either those people are European brothers, or that's a gay couple. Cool. It's really about as far as it goes. Like, and there's also like, oh, I'm glad they can like be openly gay and like hold hands and walk down the street like a heterosexual couple, like a man and a woman could, and like have a share a peck on the cheek, and it's not a problem because it used to be one. These people seem to want to make it one again for some reason, even though they pretend they don't. And I'm not imagining them having sex because I'm a normal person. Like, I'm not like thinking about which one's the top and which one's the bottom. Do they put the penis in at all? Do they use toys? What do they do with the testicles? They're just kind of there. They're the kind of like the feet of the dick. So are they engaged with it all? Like, is it like putty? Is it like a stretching like what's going on? I don't think about these things in that way when I'm looking at random strangers on the street living their lives because I'm a normal person. Unfortunately, right-wingers, reactionaries, they have a problem with projecting their sexual thoughts and ideas onto other people and then trying to turn around and make that those people's problem. It's really weird. I don't understand it, and it leads you down some really weird paths as well, like the logical extension of viewing people in that way. Kind of problematic. So she goes on to say, she looks uncomfortable, eyes dead like those of a porn actor's. Or she's posing in a masculine way. And it seems like the way that masculine people are often posing in pictures is without much expression on the face. That's a very easily observable trend that you could see anywhere. Look at any selfie or picture taken of a masculine person, usually a man. There is no smile on the face. The eyes look dead. There's not very much expressiveness on the face either, because that's kind of what society has cooked up for how men are supposed to present themselves in front of a camera. That shouldn't be that way, and it's always nice to see like masculine men be very emotive, and look like they're excited to be there. But in this specific instance, it's a more masculine pose, and very obviously that's what's kind of being gone for here, because she's dressing kind of like a tomboy, And, eyes dead like those of a porn actor. She looks uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if you're like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. I don't know that you can really render that kind of care if you are through a magazine cover and through, vapors through internet wires. Kind of weird, men. I don't get it. So like this is like one of the weirdest things I've ever seen for people to get mad at. And it doesn't make much sense. So this is the problem, right? Like, women had 10 to 20 years where we didn't have to be sexually objectified to get a sought-after magazine cover. Now, of course, it's not like that ever ended. It's still a problem. It's just not as much of one. But the difference here is that in the case now, in the better case scenario for a woman or a feminine person presenting themselves in a sexualized manner in public, it's usually like the platonic ideal of that happening is that they are proud of their sexuality. They are proud of themselves, their body, all this kind of stuff, and they want to portray that to the world. Right? They are doing it of their volition because they want to, because they're proud of it and they're trying to, show themselves to the world. That's the platonic ideal. And theoretically, you shouldn't really have a problem with that if it's in the proper channels, like a Rolling Stone magazine, which is aimed at adults, right? So, like, that's the ideal for what's happening here. But a lot of the times when it is the case that women especially are in a position like on a magazine cover and of their own volition are sexualizing themselves out of, being proud of themselves because for so long women weren't allowed to be sexual because it was looked down upon like you're a slut or whatever, even though men are allowed to do it. But, contradictorily, they are kind of forced to be sexualized in order to get any kind of recognition in society because of the men usually that are in charge of these decisions and whatnot who want to see that. Bigotry is built upon contradictions. It's one of the cornerstones of it. It's not shocking to see. It's completely irrational by its nature. So, like, oftentimes when this is happening, people like this who pretend to be for women's rights will end up effectively slut-shaming in the same way men would for a feminine person who's doing this. And the way they do that, and the way they try to get around that while pretending to be feminists and for women's rights, is by being like, no, actually, it's not that. I'm actually going after the trans people, actually, even though they are not relevant to this discussion at all currently. Nowhere in the article, I would imagine, being trans comes up. Let's find out. Control F, trans. Nope, not there. Let's see. Is there another one? Nope, one match. And it's what about transgender? Nope. Okay, it looks like it's not about trans people, but we gotta make it about trans people. Because we have nothing else going on in our lives, and we found out that this is a good way to get other bigots to give us attention and money. And political power, depending. Also, eyes dead, Kristen Stewart looks like that all the time. I believe that, Black Org. Like, I'll take your word for it, but I feel like in like the Twilight movie cover that I've seen, she's looking like that too. You know, God forbid women have dead eyes. That's kind of in vogue nowadays to have dead eyes. People like that, actually. But yeah, the way they get around being anti-feminist and anti-woman is by saying they're like shitting on trans people, actually. Which is obviously what she follows up with the next sentence. And then with the armchair psychology, like she's not wanting to be there. But like even without the gender ideology shit, people who are like puritanical about women expressing their sexuality, like in music, like with Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B, or in other art forms like fashion, etc., or in like their paintings or whatever, they will also give this take. It'd be like, oh, this woman, even though she's doing it of her own volition and trying to express her own sexuality in a way that she's proud of, she's just doing it for the male gaze. She's just doing it so that men will look at it. And that's why she's doing it. So even though she might not know she's playing into the patriarchy, she is, and blah, 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 blah. And it ends up serving another avenue to keep women from being liberated from these aforementioned problems. And that's kind of the goal. Either wittingly or unwittingly, that's what people like this are doing. Oftentimes, it is the case that terfs are actually not a big fan of women. They're less of a fan of men, don't get me wrong, but they are often not a big fan of women generally. You know, it's their internalized misogyny that's kind of at play here. But like, if you read through the article, it turns out that she's actually like happy to be in the photo shoots, and it's promotional material for the new lesbian romantic thriller film that she's a part of. And apparently she's also a lesbian in real life. So her dressing, shall I say, a little dykey, pretty cool. I'm happy to see that she's happy to do that and proud of it, you know? Frankly, I think tomboys and butch lesbians and andromask lesbians and androfem lesbians, all the types there, pretty poggers, have to say. I'm a big fan. I like the look. Mullets are in. She's rocking it. And this is interesting shit to me, because this is always the case with LGB without the T-types. Always with the terfs and the whatnot, where they're like, oh my god, why can't you just be a tomboy? Why do you have to be a trans man? Why can't you just be a femboy? Why do you have to be a trans woman? You know, it's like that step a little bit past outright bigotry for gender non-conforming people, masked with a pseudo-progressive like, oh, I'm okay with feminine men and masculine women, but as soon as you try to change they gender and charge they phone, then I have a problem with it. Turns out they don't like the gender nonconformity by default. That's what they have a problem with. Now they're pretending that they don't, but clearly they do. They don't like when people step outside of the bounds that society, usually crafted once again for all the feminists out there by men with a patriarchal outlook in the world, those in positions of power to move society in this way, plus, you know, all the cultural influences that, you know, are downstream of that. They get mad when you step outside of those bounds. Because for whatever reason, because they want control of people, because they want to utilize these problems in society and stoke the fires of them to get attention, clicks, relevancy, political power, money, whatever the motivation is, or they're just genuinely delusional and hateful people, which is also possible, but it's what they end up reinforcing. Gender stereotypes. The biggest problem that terfs will have, LGB without the T-types will have, is with trans people who, by their nature, are the logical extension of gender nonconformity. They are so nonconforming to their gender that they are now a different gender, right? They're not a big fan of that. They pretend to be okay with the step before that, which might just be the final, you know, resting place of some people, which is being a tomboy, being a femboy, etc., being a feminine man, being a masculine woman. That could be, you know, the end state for some people, and they're happy with it, and hell yes, let's go. But for some people, to go further than that, if they are not fully satisfied with how they want to be and they want to actualize themselves further, they will trans they gender. Either socially, by going by a different name, dressing in a different way, doing vocal training, whatever, or medically, via hormones, replacing the dominant hormone in their body with another, suppressing the one that they're usually producing, and then slowly developing secondary sexual characteristics more in line with the gender they are because of those hormone changes, as well as potential surgeries they might get either for aesthetic changes or functional changes even. You know, womb transplants are going to be a thing that can happen in the future, which is going to be really good for cisgender women who have infertility problems and whatnot. But also for trans women who would like to also bear children. All of that is a logical extension of gender nonconformity, and is not to say that you need to do that Like, it's not to say that if you are just a feminine man or a masculine woman that you need to continue the path or else, like, you haven't finished. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's one of the potential next steps should a person want to, of their own volition, make it, right? And they don't like it because they want to control you. That's all that it is. They want to have some modicum of control. And terfs will do this by trying to, one, control other women in the form of cis women who are going to be more androgynous, like we're seeing here, or masculine, like we're seeing here. Or they'll try to control what they see as women, but are actually men, in the form of trans men, because they are not a big fan of people who are assigned female at birth being actualized and breaking the rules of gender and liberating themselves from the shackles of the patriarchy and the associated downstream effects that happen and influence our perception of gender. As feminists, you would hope that they would understand that, but clearly they don't, and they end up reinforcing it. It's almost like they're not actually feminists or something. And it's also not to say that they haven't like been exposed to enough actual feminists arguing for it, because they are actively hostile to actual feminists who are more learned on the topics than they are, and they end up being really vitriolic to them too. I digress. It's a bit cringe in it. Let me see. What do we got here? Let's see these comments from this random ass blue check on Twitter. Women have never had a time when sexually objectifying ourselves wasn't presented as necessary for attention. The phobia claim isn't accurate here. People are blaming everything on the T, but they're using the same tactics that worked for LGB. Scrutiny is key, methods matter. Angie Jones replies, "You are right. We had a few years where we had a false sense we were heading in the right direction." Somebody else replies, "Oh, please, Ange. This is so far removed from the truth. She's no victim. She's leading her own life." Angie replies, "So she asked to be on the cover with her hands down her pants? The fuck if she did? Are you in her head? Are you in her mind? Do you occupy space in Kristen Stewart's skull? For one, I don't think you do, because I doubt she's thought of you at all. I don't know that she knows you exist, but like, are you in her head? Is this Kristen Stewart's alt account where she's venting about her own internalized misogyny? I don't understand what's going on here. What the fuck if she did? If you read the article, she's actually kind of happy and proud about the photo shoots and the film that it's publicity for. Wow. The fuck? Sorry, Angie, but I disagree with you on this one. It's like a cross between early 2000s Shane from the L Word and Peaches the Muso. I love it. I'm a huge fan of the aesthetic. Lesbian women need to know there's a viable alternative to trans crap. Well, here we go. We got a Dickless W on Twitter is a proud anti-trans ally here, and is a big fan of lesbians, but wants to continue to reinforce misogyny and patriarchal ideas as a way to get back at those pesky transes that don't have any effect on their life at all. Angie replies, "I probably wouldn't mind this shoot in another magazine, but Rolling Stone is pretty much a men's magazine." How many goalposts do we need to shift? "I think you just hate her open expression of lesbianism/female homosexuality. Lesbians can see exactly what you're doing. You just made it very clear how you feel about us. Lesbians have the right to be sexual beings without being labeled, quote, pornographic. You are a lesbophobe." I agree. Oh, wait, no, we got a reply from some rando. "We just hate how everything is hypersexualized. It's not, though. It just depends on what you're looking for. If literally everything you're seeing is hypersexualized, you might want to look for less hypersexualized media, maybe? Like, I've been playing Call to the Lamb recently, which is a fun little roguelite management game, and things aren't very sexualized there. Now, they did add sex to the game by popular demand, in that you can make the members of your camp, breed so that you can produce another person that can work later on. And, that's a way to keep going in the game if you can't find other people to recruit. But, like, generally speaking, it's not very sexualized at all. There are things out there that aren't. If all you're seeing are things that are, maybe you're just not looking hard enough. She's being defiantly queer, something you must know nothing about, and then on and on and on and on. Oh, this was a good one I think I saw when I was looking through. Show more. "Angie, this is not porn-inspired. Men find this disgusting. True. They have been talking about how they find it revolting since it came out. Real. This is not what, quote, lesbian porn looks like when it's made for men. Absolutely true. Like, lesbian porn made for men is dreadful. And depictions of lesbians in media that are made for men is also dreadful. Most often than not. Straight women are sexually objectified on magazine covers all the time. No one seems to comment on it." I don't know about that one. I think a fair few people comment on it, in that, it's good if they are okay with being sexualized and they're being proud of their sexuality and expressing it themselves. Obviously, you wouldn't want it to happen to them without their input and their want to do it. How is it homophobic? She talks about how she's proud to be gay throughout. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe. You're not, luckily. This fucking freak Angie Jones is. And she's not the only one, I should say. There have been other people. So given that, this very real take, men find this disgusting. They have been talking about how they find it revolting since it came out. This is not what lesbian porn looks like when it's made for men. Like, this is really fucking true. And you can see this from, like, the dumbass conservatives on Twitter who will look at the Kristen Stewart image of her being a tomboy and be like, what happened to our men? Wokeness destroys the mind, body, and soul. I'm looking at this person and I no longer want to have sexual intercourse with them. And that's their problem somehow. Like, that's how they're commonly reacting. It's like when Elliot Page announced that he was a man, a trans one, and so many, like, kissless versions on Twitter are like, oh my god, misgendering her, she's not hot anymore, look what wokeness does. And, like, he's looking fine. He's obviously been in the gym, looking happy, has talked about endlessly how he's happy about being a man and being seen in society as a man as well, how it makes him feel actualized and good. Like, it's not for you, bro. When people present themselves as human beings in public, it is often the case, and the ideal is, that they are presenting themselves that way because they want to, because they feel good doing it. So, for instance, when there's a man that goes out and gets a nice tailored suit with some, like, nice shoes and, like, a knitted t-shirt that's tucked into some high-rise trousers, and they got the nice jacket, and they go out and they got their facial hair in order, they're wearing, jewelry and whatnot, they're presenting themselves in that way, ideally because they want to, because they know that people who find masculine men attractive, in this specific instance, would like to see them look like that. But the primary thing there is that they want to look like that, right? There is certainly the avenue there where they like that other people are looking at them and find them to be either aspirational, if it's like a straight man who's seeing another man who's, like, very obviously exuding masculinity in a way that they find inspiring, or attractive for the people who are attracted to men like that. That is a part of the equation for some, not all people. But even if it is, what's the problem? They're being themselves, they're doing what they want to do, and they're not hurting anybody. I don't know what makes people want to control other people in that way. I don't know that I've felt like that want, that, like, burning desire to control what other people are doing if they're not hurting anybody or themselves. Like, I don't get it. It's hard for me to empathize with people who do have those impulses. But, like, I see Kristen Stewart being happy about being a lesbian and being, a bit more masculine. I see that and I go, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm happy that she could do that. And other people will see it, and if they want to look like her, they'll be like, wow, that's a good aspirational thing to look at, so that I can maybe look like her too. Or for people who find her attractive, or both, they could be like, wow, she's attractive. That's cool. No skin off my nose, man. I don't get it. But like I say, it's all about control. It's about control and political power for these people, for these types. And in the specific instance of, terfs, quote unquote, they just don't want trans people to exist. That's the big thing. And the avenues through which they try to make that point is often by going after non-trans people. So gender non-conforming people are usually the next target there. And that's what's happening here. You can, like, veil it with as much feminist jargon as you want, but that doesn't make you a feminist, especially when your actions prove otherwise. It just makes you kind of sad, to be quite honest, that you seem to care so much about what another person is doing. Anyway. I want to find some other examples of people being cringe, because I don't want to just pick on, the one person who deserves to be picked on, frankly. Kristen Stewart. Oh yes, like the account that commonly posts Nazi shit, who has also been endorsed by Elon Musk, and wokeness said, wokeness destroys the mind, body, and soul. And that's like a reference to another meme, but I don't know that they disagree with it. Like, I know it's a meme, and they're using it in a mimetic way, but I think they actually also agree with that. And the thing is here is that they no longer want to fuck Kristen Stewart. That's it. They see this Kristen Stewart and they're like, wow, I would like to put a penis in. And then they see this Kristen Stewart and they're like, wow, I no longer want to put a penis in. And that's their problem with it. And, like, that's a you problem, man. Like, that's not her problem. That's not anybody else's problem but yours, but you're making it everybody else's problem by projecting that shit onto her. What the fuck? Figure your shit out, man. Put the porn down for a second. Put your dick away. What are you doing? Like, this is crazy. Like, it's fine to see a woman and be like, wow, I would like to put a penis in, like, in your own head. That's fine. I'm not going to police your thoughts. But, like, you don't have to tell me. And if you are telling people, at least keep it in like the proper places to discuss that with other adults, man. Come on. I don't need to see your ass on the timeline like this. Or they do and don't want to admit it. That's also true. Yeah, that's a big problem that homophobes will have, bigots generally. This has happened for any bigotry, really. And it's happened, obviously, with the oldest bigotry, where there'll be men whose entire existence and personality is based on the idea that they are not the biggest fans of women. And that's why they seek to control them in so many ways. But also their entire life has been searching for a woman to love them and act like their mom to them because they don't live with their mom anymore. And it's like there's an embarrassment there that they try to cover up with like, oh, well, I only see women as an object and I'm like a player, like Andrew Tate type shit. They try to cover it up with that kind of like machismo. But like the crux of that is that you pretend to hate women so much, but you don't. You actually like them quite a bit. But you need to be perceived as hating them, or else your friends will make fun of you, or your community won't like you anymore, right? And this is the same problem for homophobes. There will be homosexual-ass men out there, like Republican Congress people who will vote on anti-gay legislation, who are then found out to be sucking dick in a McDonald's bathroom. And I mean, you shouldn't be doing that because that's a public venue. But what they do is like, okay, well, I need to be performatively anti-gay because if I come out as being gay as a Republican representative, I'll probably lose my seat in the House or the Senate or whatever. Because the people who voted me in are not okay with the gays. And I've been pandering to that audience, so I kind of need to be that way as well, right? The latest iteration of that is George Santos, may he rest in peace, my sassy queen, has fallen, unfortunately, and been replaced by a demon rat. But there have been other examples. And obviously, you know, in that instance, George Santos was openly gay, but he was also openly, like, anti-queer in, like, a self-hating capacity. I'm pretty sure he was, like, an LGBT without the T kind of person. But, like, this is a common thing. Like, even for fucking racists. There will be people who, like, make it their whole life, like in the KKK, to hate black people. But, like, secretly, they're very sexually interested in black people. And they hide that by being very racist, because if they come out as like being in favor of like wanting sexual relations with like a black man, for instance, or a black woman, they'll be ostracized from their broader racist ass community, and they don't want that. It's like it's the old Joker meme. Gay porn has way too many views. Some of you motherfuckers are lying, and you are. And that's kind of the point. Is like we can get rid of all that if we just allowed people to be gay or straight or gay for women but still be straight, or be trans, or be gender nonconforming. If we just let people do that without trying to control them and stop them from doing it, you wouldn't have to hide anymore. You wouldn't have to coat your bigotry all over your words as a smokescreen to hide the fact that you find femboys tantalizing. It'd be a better world for everybody. Anyway, let's see if we could find more. Oh, we've got somebody who's unfortunately potentially in trouble with the government of his home nation of Malaysia, Ian Miles Wrong, who has stated, Hollywood ruined her. I don't think that's true, but at least in this context, there was something to ruin. Bro was born ruined. Have you seen yourself? And like the tweet I found the screenshot of is saying, bro, she is not for you. And that's also true. She's doing this herself. It is for her, and frankly, for lesbians. Now, I will say, hi, progressive. You might want to like at least cut the image off here. Like I said, I don't think it's a problem, but YouTube demonetization is weird. I will say that there can be cis men, heterosexual men, who find masculine women attractive. That can and does happen. But oftentimes it is the case that it's, you know, cis het men who are having a problem, which is a shame because, you know, you're kind of losing out. Oh, I also saw a meme where it was Robert Pattinson from The Lighthouse and Kristen Stewart from the promotional material for Love Lies Below or whatever the movie is, the Tomboy shit we've been looking at. And it's like a Twilight reboot, but with these two. Then I might actually watch that shit if that happened. I feel like that'd be cool as hell. I wish I could see that. Maybe it's in my likes. Who knows? Oh, wait, is it here? Oh, it is here. Thank God. Here we go. I wholeheartedly endorse this idea. Reboot for Twilight. This Edward, this Bella. Hell yes. The Lighthouse is such a good movie. I may fancy his lobster. I may. Anyway. Shit's cringe. Let people live their lives, bro. It's got nothing to do with you. Stop injecting yourself, you know, into other people's lives. It's weird, man. Like, I don't know how you could be happy as a person if you're constantly mad online all the time. And, you know, you could say, like, well, just let people be mad all the time. And, like, sure, but I would like to see people happy. That's kind of like a distilled, simplified version of, like, my broader political, you know, ideology is maximizing happiness for people in a very basic reading of it. Like, I would like to see people be happy. I think that's a very normal human thing to want. But apparently not for, you know, conservatives, Republicans, reactionaries, so-called terfs, etc., etc. Apparently not. I don't get it. I'll never get it. I can kind of figure it out, logically speaking, but it is illogical by its nature. It's very cringe. Be good. Have fun. Live your life. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, I don't give a damn what you do. Unless, of course, you're playing League of Legends. And at that point, I'm out. I may or may not have called my representatives to draft legislation to impose severe social penalties for League of Legends players. Stay tuned for more news on that. Anyway, get out of here.